Thank you very much for joining us. You're welcome to Breakfast Central. And it's been a very long week. We're hoping to wrap up with a little bit of high, although there have been some controversy with the NNPC and OVH deal, which we hope to get some clarity from and what that will mean for Nigeria's energy security. I am Olive Emodi. You're welcome to the show.
And I am Osaogi Ogbawa. Another opportunity to once again highlight the death or the reported killing of the Emir of Gobir in Sokoto State by kidnappers, according to what the stories say. And of course, you know, the 20 Nigerian medical students that are still currently held in captivity. These are things or stories that, you know, that should not be forgotten as we go about our daily activities here in Nigeria. These are also Nigerians just like us, you know, and of course, you know, it's maybe an opportunity to highlight the fact that we might still, or we obviously still have a major kidnapping problem in Nigeria, that the Nigerian security agencies, security forces need to do everything possible to help put an end to. These and some of the other conversations that we're going to be having this morning. Remember, you could be a part of it. Simply tweet at News Central TV or join us sometime in the 8 o'clock hour and call the phone lines that are going to be on your screen and share your thoughts with us on the stories that we are discussing this morning. Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. Olive, how are you?
I'm well. Unfortunately, I wish that things were different yesterday. Social media was full of a lot of banter. What started out, or what I think started out as light banter between Nigeria and South Africa has taken a completely different turn. In the past 24 hours, we've seen people make mockery, you know, people make jokes from both countries, and unfortunately, that has cost a lot, in this case, for South Africans. It started with a video, I believe a video of a man posting a clip where he had requested a ride from a Nigerian driver whilst being in South Africa. And before you know, they started making fun and making, you know, a lot of banter. And when Nigerians woke up, Nigerians said, if you go low, we go lower. And they all went and started hailing rides, such that the Bolt app had to be shut down in South Africa. Drivers went home and a number of people trekked. I think that one thing that the continent must learn, you know, whilst I'm not applauding or, you know, I'm not in support of how both countries have handled this, but when it comes to Nigeria, the one thing that eventually unites us is international aggression. Once you get any form of international aggression on social media from another country, at that point, nobody cares what political party you're a part of. We're all one Nigeria that is being attacked, and everybody sort of unites and fights them. However, the sad part is that there are people whose livelihood has been affected as a result of this. What started as a very silly game or a silly trend has caused a lot of people loss of businesses because there were requests and orders that were being made, orders that people had no business. Someone would order plasma TV, order refrigerator, and all these very interesting things, and, you know, put the delivery address in a house that they have no idea who has it. So businesses were affected. There were people who had to walk yesterday because they had no access to the taxi hailing app. And then there was a surge. People had to pay twice the amount that they would typically pay. It was just sad, I would say, that we've taken this rivalry to this extent. It's really sad.
I mean, there's a lot of, you know, there's nothing to be, you know, to be proud of, you know, with the events of yesterday. I think everybody who was a part of it should be ashamed of themselves, both on the Nigerian and South African side. I understand that there's high levels of unemployment in both countries, so it felt like it was the unemployment Olympics yesterday, but they should be ashamed of themselves entirely. I know where it came from, and I know that, you know, there has been a subtle level of tension building between both countries online for a bit. Nigerians were always referred to xenophobia and, you know, the accusations against South Africans for many, many years now. But it definitely was not necessary to, you know, get to the level that it got yesterday. My worry is that it's only the start of further breakdown of a relationship that we should have between ourselves and the South Africans, and every other part of, you know, of the continent. What we've seen yesterday, you know, is only that's the start. That's my worry. And that it would go further than that. I feel like, you know, the thing that we pride ourselves on with the fact that, oh, you know, Nigerians will always rise up and come together, we should use that same energy to challenge the ills that are going on in our country. Nigerians should be able to come together, you know, when it is time to question certain things that are wrong with our country. We should never, only come together when it's time to battle online with the Ghanaians or with the South Africans or with any other country. When it's time for us to unite, we should be united against the problems that we are directly facing. While we are ordering Bolt and Uber in South Africa, there was the OVH and the NNPC conversation going on in Nigeria. There's 20 Nigerian medical students still in captivity. There was the Emir of Gobir that was murdered. Yeah. There's still, of course, the Nigerian president who is on, work staying in France.
And there's still
those are the things, and there's still petrol scarcity.
In fact, yes, a number of them raised that as an argument as to why they were upset that this even started in the first place, because there is fuel scarcity, so requesting a ride and then cancelling it, knowing that there's fuel scarcity, was an unkind thing to do. But I think my final thoughts on this would be that it's a reminder to us as a continent that we're not very, very united, which is a shame, seeing that we all have the same problems plaguing us. Like Nigeria, like South Africa, we complain of conversations of corruption and how the leaders have not particularly shown interest in ensuring that they move the nation forward. So we are linked and connected together by the same evils. The very least that we can do is to unite as one voice and kick out these evils rather than fighting ourselves, which is what we have become known for. And it's a really, really sad update. And I hope that we can find a way around it. Rather than embracing the West and running to the West, we must look within ourselves. This is not the future that our leaders fought for.
We begin breakfast headlines in the west of the continent, where residents of Sabon Birni, Sokoto State in Nigeria, rioted over the murder of Bawa, the Emir of Gobir, in Gawata town of the state. Bawa was abducted along with his son on his way to his native town of Sabon Birni near the border with Niger after attending a meeting in the regional capital, Sokoto. Now, after 3 weeks in captivity and a video released to plead with the Nigerian government to help secure his release, Bawa was reportedly killed in captivity. Following his death, youths in Sabon Birni took to the streets to burn tyres to express their grievances. This led to a clash between them and the police officers who tried to quell the riot. Now, following the police invitation of President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, Joe Ajero, for questioning over allegations of criminal conspiracy, terrorism financing, treasonable felony, subversion and cybercrime, more critical unions, which are NLC affiliates, have given strike notices to their members to proceed on indefinite strike should Ajero be arrested. Among unions that had already given strike notices to their members are the National Union of Electricity Employees, the Nigerian Union of Teachers, and the National Union of Textile, Garment and Tailoring Workers of Nigeria. Others include Iron and Steel Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Fitters Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Nigeria Union of Agriculture and Allied Employees, and more. And now, the prolonged petrol scarcity worsened in Lagos, Ogun, and other states as independent marketers started lifting the product from private depots at 780 naira per litre from 595 naira per litre, indicating an increase of 31%. The marketers believe the hike in price reflects the current demand and supply of the product in the domestic market. The Public Relations Officer of IPMAN, Chinedu Ukadike, who confirmed this, expressed optimism that the bad situation could improve in the coming days. And also, still talking petroleum, the management of the NNPC Limited has reacted to the allegations by former Vice President Atiku Abubakar on the OVH acquisition and claims of criminal hijack by the NNPC by corporate cabals around the current president. In a statement on Thursday titled OVH Acquisition, The Facts by NNPC Limited, and signed by Olufemi Shoneye, Chief Corporate Communications Officer, NNPC Limited, the oil corporation described Atiku's claims as a false alarm, as neither Wale Tinubu nor the president has any interest in the OVH acquisition. In a statement, the former vice president was also quoted to have listed the retention of Mele Kyari as the group chief executive officer of the NNPC as compensation for the alleged acquisition of NNPC Retail Limited by OVH, in which he claimed Wale Tinubu held a 49% stake. And now, the River State High Court, sitting in Port Harcourt, has granted an ex-parte order restraining the All Progressive Congress from holding its scheduled congresses in River State. The court ordered that the national leadership of the APC, led by its chairman Abdullahi Ganduje and its secretary Surajuddin Ajibola Bashiru, should not go ahead to conduct the ward, local government and state congresses scheduled for the 11th, 16th and 26th of October 2024. The judge also restrained the national leadership of the party against any plan to suspend the Emeka Bekele-led executives of the party in the state. Now to some good news. Ovation International, the parent company of Ovation Magazine and Television, has entered into a strategic content partnership with News Central TV. This collaboration will see News Central exclusively air both past and upcoming high-profile social events by Ovation through its Social Diaries segment. In a statement on Thursday, Kayode Akintemi, Managing Director and Editor-in-Chief of News Central, said the deal would elevate the station's weekend programming by offering viewers a closer look at elite gatherings in Nigeria and across Africa. Akintemi emphasized that the inclusion of Ovation's exclusive content aligns perfectly with News Central's commitment to providing high-quality programming to viewers. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. I am Osaogie Ogbowa.
Stakeholders converged on the Ochendo International Conference Center in Umuahia, Abia State, Southeast Nigeria, for a town hall meeting at the instance of the Minister of State for Police Affairs, Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, to seek better ways of improving security in the state. The meeting attracted the police and sister agencies, traditional rulers, legal practitioners, and captains of industry in the state. News Central's Chinwe Ogele has details.
Security, they say, is everybody's business. Hence the meeting to once again highlight the need for all to take seriously matters concerning it.
We are all policing officers. We are all custodians of security, and we must recognize our role, act as watchdogs or informants, and contribute to shaping a safer and more resilient society.
And our individual and collective responsibility to keep our community safe from the activities of goods trafficking, and profit from criminality.
The Minister of State for Police Affairs, Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, said it was necessary to bring stakeholders together to make them understand why they should get involved in security.
The security and safety of each community rests on the shoulders of the community dwellers. It's very important that we work as a team. So we just want the stakeholders and the community to take ownership and responsibility of the safety of their communities and work hand in hand with the security agencies.
You cannot police people who do not want to be policed. You cannot protect people who do not want to be protected, no matter how much you try. So the best thing is to let people key in to the program and support the program so that it's easier.
The minister had a brief inspection of the police clinic and school at the Central Police Station in Umuahia, where she also observed that some of the police facilities needed rehabilitation. The state chairman of the Traditional Rulers Council, Linus Mba, agrees that security is a joint effort which cannot be ignored by citizens.
Let the community know how to track down the criminals in their domain and be sure that they are living peace. But these people are coming in various times.
Even business owners are aware that every part of the state must be secure for their businesses to thrive.
Lobanta cattle market, we have at least not less than 50 vigilantes that are assaulted in the cattle market. And at the same time, I'm working with police hand to hand.
The citizens need to be highly security conscious and to know things that are happening around their communities. Communities need to be secured. If you don't secure the communities, the urban areas will be secure.
Community policing has always improved the trust the citizens have for the police to some extent. In Umuahia for News Central, Chinwe Ugeli.
Thank you very much, Chinwe Ogele, for that report. We're moving away from there to talk about what's been going on with the NNPCL. So much has happened in that area, and we're going to be talking about it shortly.
Now, first, the NNPCL published its annual net profit of 3.3 trillion naira. This comes from the oil firm informed, or rather comes as the oil firm informed the Federal Account Allocation Committee, FAC, of an outstanding payment of 4.56 trillion naira for selling petrol at a subsidized price between August 2023 and June 2024. The Chief Financial Officer of the NNPCL, Alhaji Umar Ajia, disclosed that the government pays the company to sell PMS at half price of the landing cost, what he calls shortfall.
This comes as Nigerians grapple with soaring petrol prices and widespread scarcity, while the firm currently responsible for importing petrol into Nigeria, NNPC Retail, controversially changed its ownership. NNPC Retail, the downstream arm of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, has ceased to exist after a court-approved transfer of its ownership and assets to OVH Energy Marketing Limited, a company it claimed to have acquired. NNPCL bought OVH from New Oil Energy Limited a month after New Oil Energy acquired OVH in September 2022. However, it has been revealed that the purchase company OVH Energy has essentially taken over the management of its buyer, the NNPC retailer. This development has been described by an NNPC insider as the most ridiculous business acquisition in the world. Lots of complications regarding that, but let's take a look at this video.
I think there is one fact that I need to make very clear, that in the last 8 or 9 years, this company, even corporation as it were, has not paid anybody a dime or 1 naira as subsidy. No one has been paid kobo by NNPC as in the name of subsidy. That means no marketer has received money from us by way of subsidy. What has been happening is that we've been importing PMS, landing at a certain price, at a cost price, and government is telling us to sell it at half price. So the delta between that landed price and the half price is what we call shortfall, or call it subsidy. And the deal is between Federation and ourselves to reconcile, and sometimes they give us money, sometimes we do net ups. So there is no money exchanging hands to any marketer or anybody in the name of subsidy.
So many complications, interesting perspectives, but we hope to get some clarity with our guests joining. We're joined by the Chief Economist at SPM Professionals, Paul Alaje. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you so very much for having me.
We'll also be joined by an energy expert and the co-founder of the CEO of Dairy Hills, Kelvin Emmanuel. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's begin the conversation with Mr. Alaje and hope that you can maybe help us with some clarity regarding the NNPC Retail and OVH. NNPC has given their own reports, even though there have been claims of OVH, NNPC Retail Limited initially purchasing OVH and OVH initially purchasing NNPC Retail Limited. But they're starting to see that we're starting to hear about some mergers having happened, and that is not the image that is being presented to the public. So I don't know if you have some clarity regarding that and you can help us with that.
Well, the information in the public domain indicates that the NNPC had acquired the OVH, but the circumstances around it is not as clear as one would expect. So, but what is also clear is that OVH is the one managing the retail arm of NNPC. And as one would have expected that NNPC with the capacity and what is expected, all the activity would have been done directly by the NNPC. Unfortunately, this is not the case this time, this moment. And I think that what we call unbundling was not properly done. And when you look at the Petroleum Industry Act, I doubt if what we are currently seeing is obtainable.
All right. I'm hoping that, there's still further clarity regarding that. But I just want to react or quote something from the NNPC statement that they put on their X page. They said, and I quote, they refer to it as a merger. They said the first step of merging NNPC Retail Limited into OVH has been completed, and the post-merger renaming as NNPC Retail Limited is ongoing. So a number of confusions regarding that. Is it a merger or was there actually an acquisition that happened? Was it a situation of NNPC actually purchasing OVH or is it really a merger and maybe not something to worry as much about? Mr.
Well,
Lajay?
if it's a merger, the literature is very obvious. It is when two organizations come together because each of them have unique competencies. So when they come together, then we call it a merger. But when decide to buy the entire shares of another, then that's an acquisition. So if NNPC is saying we have a merger, that means OVH has some shares in NNPC or in the retail section of NNPC. But when you check who owns the larger proportion of NNPCL today, NNPCL is also a private organization. And that is why I said, beyond what is going on in the media space, we need to look at the papers regarding NNPC and OVH. And until we have that accurate information, what we are doing will just be gainsay, because NNPC has given even room for more confusion. The first publication talks about merger. The first publication talks about acquisition. The recent publication is talking about merger. Obviously, these two are not the same thing. So until we know for a certainty what actually happened between the two, then we might have a lot to worry about beyond what we are currently concerned now.
All right. We're going to go to Mr. Emmanuel in a bit. So apologies, Mr. Emmanuel, just hold on. Mr. Lajay, I wanted you to also speak on the little details that we're not highlighting here, of course, erupting mostly from Atiku Abubakar's accusations. And if you have read through the report, there is a claim that there's a court ruling, basically. They went to court, they have, of course, transferred all their shares and acquisitions for NNPC Retail to OVH. So initially it sounded like the NNPC had purchased OVH, but then OVH now controls NNPC Retail's shares and all its, legally, all its, basically it controls a lot of its own shares. So that's where there's a confusion here, that one person had initially bought the other, but now it seems that the other owns the one who initially bought it. And that may have led to conversations concerning this petrol scarcity, who really is now in control of importing petrol into Nigeria. Is it OVH or is it NNPC? So do you understand where the confusion is? And can you provide some clarity here?
Yes. So for me, it goes beyond the reason for petrol scarcity. The truth is that even when we settle this ownership structure and you have even NNPC, you will still have petrol scarcity, because the system that we run is not efficient. So you are going to have petrol scarcity. It means government current policies, it's just going to be from time to time. And I've also read part of what the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar put in public domain. And I can tell you that beyond what has happened, what I noticed and what I read, it's as though NNPC claims they bought OVH, even though it's against what is different from what NNPC put on their eggs. So, but at the same time, if you are bought, is it that they bought it with the management and asked the management to continue running the NNPC retail section for them? If that be the case, then we need to now ask, where is merger coming from? And if they are bought, is with how much? You see, it's only in Nigeria that most of these activity, they are done in secrecy. My opinion, we need an external forensic auditor to look into the books of NNPC. Not until that, there will be a lot of guessing and misinformation, insufficient information that will dominate the public space.
All right. I'm glad that you've brought on the leadership aspect, and I'm going to bring in our next guest to talk about that. I'm also going to make reference to the speech or the publication by the NNPC. Number 8 on the press release of the NNPC, that the press release they released on their X page. It says, the management of NNPC Limited, under the leadership of Mele Kyari, has done very well in growing the company's fortunes, as shown in the 2023 audited financial statement, where it's reported at 3.3 trillion naira as profit after tax. And, this is something that has been like a big story. So I'm going to bring in Kevin into the conversation. Kevin Emmanuel, so far, do you agree with the position of the NNPC that Mele Kyari has done really well? And how important is it, this 3.3 trillion naira in profits that they have announced or disclosed as at 2023 or 2023 profits? How important is this in the grand scheme of things?
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
I was just going to mention about the OVH and NPC story that about 3 years ago, Owando finished divestment from OVH. OVH actually means Owando, Vitol, and Ilios. And that divestment over the years was in the ratio of 60%, 35%, and 5%. And Owando had done that divestment to raise funds several years ago to finance his acquisition of ConocoPhillips assets upstream, when ConocoPhillips, the American producer that is competitor to the likes of Chevron and ExxonMobil in the US, was exiting Nigeria. Owando needed to raise cash. And they had done that divestment to add to over $1 billion they needed to put up to be able to finance that acquisition. And it was able to raise cash from some other means to, but that acquisition didn't quite pan out the way they had expected. So,
Mr. Emmanuel, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, we would like that you speak up, just speak up a little bit more so we can hear you better.
Yes. I said Owando kept his name brand as a probably like a lease of his name for a period that will extend until September of 2024, next month, and before the lease of his name will expire, and they will have to remove his name from that OVH merger of their downstream business that they no longer hold because they have divested fully from it. But I have always maintained that, listen, according to the PIA, the Petroleum Industry Act says that NNPC is not supposed to control more than 30% of the downstream sector. But you've seen a situation where NNPC controls most of the downstream sector because a lot of independent marketers are unable to access FX to import and compete with NNPC, And this is the reason why I say, look, there are 15 subsidiaries in NNPC. There are only 6 that are important. NNPC is not supposed to be in the retail business. NNPC is supposed to stay in the midstream and in the upstream business. There are several areas like gas and power, like new energy, I also do not think that the government should be in the business of refining petrol and other derivatives. I think the government-owned refineries should be sold to private sector businesses to manage because government has no business doing business. And you've seen over the years, they spent 12 trillion trying to do turnaround maintenance on those refineries, and it's not yielded anything so far. And they keep moving dates, and Nigerians can't see anything. Now, to the question you asked, the 2.1 trillion naira dividend that they declared to the government has already been spent. It's paper profit. So there's no situation where you see that the Consolidated Revenue Fund, Federal Account Allocation Committee that belongs to the federating units, federal, state, and local government are going to say, oh, you know what, NNPC paid us 2.1 trillion naira dividend. There's no situation like that. I have maintained that, for example, since January of this year, NNPC has not remitted royalty for proceeds to the federation account for the fact to appropriate and share amongst its members. And NNPC denied it. They said that, we've been paying taxes. We're one of the highest paying tax institutions in Nigeria. And I said, taxes are not the same with royalties because NNPC owns the FGN's share of assets upstream. And according to their balance sheet, that is worth over 200 trillion naira, about 240 trillion naira. So, if you look at the deep offshore, if you look at the midshore, you look at the onshore business, they own about 55% in cumulative average of oil and gas assets upstream. So they represent the federal government. So
we're struggling with your audio. For some reason, your voice sounds very low and very muffled. So we'd appreciate if you can help us maybe speak up. Whilst we're trying to sort out your audio, let's bring in Mr. Laje into the conversation as well. And I'm going to ask you the same question that I had asked Kevin earlier. What do you think about the 3.3 trillion naira profits that NNPC had declared? Is it something to be excited about? Is it something that matters in the grand scheme of things, especially looking at the current reality? The average Nigerian doesn't understand that. So what does that really mean?
Okay, so I will speak to 4 things regarding the 3.3 trillion. Now, when you call it trillion, it looks humongous. When you want to convert this to dollar, it becomes $2.1 billion. $2.1 billion for NNPC in 2023 is far abysmal. And you can look at their contemporary around the world, then you know that NNPC performed quite poorly. Now, that 3.3 trillion, when you convert it to what it was in 2022, with the exchange rate, average exchange rate of the year, that 3.3 trillion will become 1.8 trillion. When you in fact convert it to 2021, then that 3.3 trillion will be a loss to 2021. Why? Because even though we did barely 674 billion, but when you look at the exchange rate of about 400 official window in 2021, and you look at what we had in 2023 at about 1,600, then you know that it was a better yesterday. And when you convert it to 2020, then you can do the math. So here is it. What makes NNPC should actually declare their profit in US dollar, because most of their activities are done in hard currency. So that said, where is the money? And this is very important we understand. I don't think this money is somewhere saved in a bank where the government will say, go and use that money and pay now. I believe most of the money, if not all, had been spent. And what is important is just to get a directive so that we can formalize what has already been done. So for me, 3.3 trillion naira in 2023 is quite poor. Not because the money don't look good on paper, but what we are talking about is merely $2.1 billion.
All right. And of course, interesting way to put it. You know, the one question that you asked there is, where's the money? Everyone, of course, you know, is asking the same questions. And that's why there have been calls to open up the NNPC's books. Let's know exactly what's going on. Let's know where, you know, Nigeria's money is going, how much the company is earning, you know, if there's any mismanagement of funds over there. I'm going to bring back Kelvin Emmanuel and see if we can hear him better now. I want you to speak on the idea of subsidy. NNPC, of course, requested that its earnings would not be remitted to the Federation account. It would rather use that money to pay off, you know, subsidy earnings in 2022, 2024. So quickly react to that. There's a lot of, you know, or rather lack of clarity with regards to the subsidy payment system. Are we still paying subsidy? Or are we paying shortfall as they've described it? Is there questions that must be answered by the current administration?
Well, I don't know if you can hear me now. Is it better now?
Yeah, we can. I think you just need to speak up more. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so there were only 2 months in 2023 when Nigeria did not pay subsidy. That was when the US dollar was still hovering around $800, $800 naira to $1, 770, 800 naira to $1 in the markets. And you saw that there was like the first time, like the official and parallel market trade aligned, and the black market premium was below 5%. And for the months of June and July in 2023, Nigeria did not pay subsidy. But when crude oil price started going up and you started seeing that black market premium widen above the recommended 5%, and it started going up above 800 to 900, and then it went to 1,000, and it started screaming, and it went above 1,000 and continued. Then the government had to introduce back subsidy, which the group CFO, Mr. Alhaji Ajia, said it's FX differential. They just do not want to call it subsidy. And what you've seen basically is a situation where in the midstream space and downstream space, the importation of PMS, you've seen a situation where international traders control 75% of the markets. The likes of Vitol, for example, which is in that OVH triangle, they are in that mix. They are one of the international traders. And Metrics Energy controls 25% of it. And if you remember, there was a news story recently about Russia and Malta, Russia and Lume to Nigeria, off-spec petrol to Malta, blending, bring to Nigeria. NNPC takes off most of that. And it comes to the markets in Nigeria, issues around the quality, specifications of the petrol. Since, like I said, since January of 2024, NNPC has not remitted revenues or proceeds due to the Federation accounts through NUPRC less than 4% since January of 2024. The PIA says that 70% of that proceeds is supposed to be remitted to the Federation account, 20% is supposed to be kept as retained earnings by NNPC, 10% is supposed to be credited to the Frontier Basin Exploration Fund. So you have a situation basically where NNPC takes the dividends due to the Federation account, from example, NLNG, and they don't remit it to the Federation account. For the 2023 financial year, NLNG paid a dividend. It's not been remitted to the Federation account. NNPC has advised the Ministry of Finance that it's going to use that to reconcile subsidy. Now, here are my issues with that. Number one, NNPC is a nominee for the federal government of Nigeria on the board of NLNG, where it holds 49%. The assets in NLNG is supposed to be warehoused with the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated, not NNPC. NNPC does not have constitutional power to hold back the dividends that is due to the Federation account, because the Federation is not just the federal government, it's the federal, state, and local governments. So what the Nigerian Governors Forum and the Association of Local Government of Nigeria decides to do with that is up to them, really. I think I am aware the NGF has appointed an auditor to check the reconciliation of that. I don't know what the auditor has brought to the NGF so far. Number two, NNPC is supposed to generate enough revenue from royalty oil to be able to sort out any reconciliation it's doing downstream for under recovery on subsidy payments. Okay. Number three, Nigeria doesn't consume 70 million liters of PMS like the government says they do. And I've always challenged the government, please provide empirical evidence to show that the number of generators, tricycles, motor vehicles, and the population of Nigeria, because you consider the fact that 12 years ago, Nigeria was consuming between 22 and 24 million liters of PMS on a daily basis. So how can you explain to Nigeria that in 12 years, with the population growing at 30% per year, Nigeria has jumped from 22 million to 24 million to 70 million?
There's obviously so much that needs to be unpacked. And I don't know that we will ever get answers to these questions if we do not have an administration that is serious. All right, quickly, please. So we need to go back to the Salaja.
Just one more important point to complete this web. NNPC owes international traders who control 75% of the market, $6.8 billion today, as we speak. And you have modified carrier agreements where there are vendor transactions for 30 to 90 days, right? Outside of which the trader is obligated to apply LIBOR plus country risk premium. And that currently stands between 7.5 to 6.5, 7 to 7%, on that loan. NNPC has not been able to pay. That's why you've seen issues with scarcity of petrol in Nigeria. And it's my guess that if the domestic refineries don't come to save the day next month, we might have more biting scarcity in Nigeria. NNPC wants to borrow another $2 billion and securitize and a well upstream to be able to draw down on that loan it owes to traders. I just think that, listen, the financial engineering on which you reconcile royalty from upstream under domestic crude oil supply obligations, crude oil intervention,
all right,
allocation of 445,000 barrels and reconciliation of downstream debt, it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense.
All right, Mr. Emmanuel.
And it's also structural.
Yeah, Mr. Emmanuel, because we need to wrap up the conversation in a bit and go back let's go back to Paul Alaje. Olive, I think you want to throw something.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask something that Mr. Emmanuel had referred to about the NNPC not having the constitutional powers to be able to withhold money from the Federation or withhold, the money that should be returned to the Federation account. Does the presidency have the right to give them the permission to do so? Because that's what the report says.
I don't think so. The act is very clear. The NNPCL has to remit what the act, the Petroleum Industry Act, has specified. So having a directive from the president, I don't think is sufficient for NNPC to act against what the act has mentioned. And to my mind, if it's NNPC is truly limited, I don't think politicians should be the one to appoint the leadership of NNPC. I strongly believe it should have come from private sector, or it should have had the input of the other entities such as state and local government in it. I must also add that when we are taking decisions to share revenues that come from NNPC, and indeed what affects the entire federation, representative of state may not be sufficient. We may need to have representative of local government. They have an umbrella body, and that is where those key decisions should be taken. If such directive should have come at worst case scenario, at fact, where we have the federal and the state executive meeting together, they may make such decision to say that use this to defray some of the outstanding, then that point, it will make more sense.
All right. Well, time will tell. You know, I know that there's still a lot to unpack with regards to the OVH deal. Atiku Abubakar, of course, you know, made some strong allegations with regards to the ownership of OVH and the interest of the, you know, possible interest of persons in the Nigerian government, including, of course, Mr. President. And those are really, really strong allegations that I don't think would just fade away, but we'll see.
Well, they've denied it, but...
Well, yeah, in the next couple of days, we'll see, you know, how things turn out. Paul Alaje, thank you very much for joining us. Kevin Emmanuel, thanks also for your time. All right.
Thank you.
We, of course, you know, will continue to unpack as much as we can concerning these conversations with the NNPC and OVH. But let's go on a quick break. When we come back, we continue this morning with Breakfast Central. Welcome once again. Now, it seems negative news surrounding the seizure of Nigeria's assets by a Chinese firm, Zhongshan Fengcheng Industrial Investment Limited, is not ending anytime soon. The Chinese company is said to have completed the seizure of a Nigerian-owned luxury airplane in Canada within the last 24 to 48 hours. Now, after a Canadian court ruled that Zhongshan was authorized to take possession of the Bombardier 6000 type aircraft and take it from Nigeria, the company recently got a change of custodian papers from Canadian authorities in Montreal. According to the report, Judge David Collier of the Superior Court of Quebec quashed Nigeria's arguments to keep aircraft ownership on March 21, 2024, stating that Zhongshan will not stop seizing Nigeria's assets worldwide until the last cent of the arbitration awards has been paid. Recently, an American appellate court determined that Nigeria was not entitled to sovereign immunity against Zhongshan's recovery of its arbitration award. According to the most recent development, Zhongshan has been successful in seizing Nigeria's assets in Canada, the UK, and France. How does this speak well of Africa's most populous nation? How does it represent our core values of honesty as a people? Why has the anti-graft agency, the presidency, kept mute without swinging to action to rescue the integrity of Nigeria? Joining us to look at what many have called an international embarrassment or disgrace, whichever you deem fit, is global affairs analyst AGK Okpa. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Are you as embarrassed? Are you as embarrassed as many Nigerians have been regarding these revelations in the past few days?
I think it's a huge, what is it like, finger in your face that an individual, not even the Chinese government, an individual can go after Nigeria and do what he has done. And the Nigerian Foreign Ministry, the Nigerian ambassador to Canada, and then President Tinubu, nobody has said anything. Nigeria has increasingly become a damaged good, and nobody cares to see how can they redeem that damaged aspect of Nigerian global image. Because you can't seize the asset of a government. There are two classes of assets, and those assets are going to be the diplomatic asset, and then, of course, the non-diplomatic asset. If it's a diplomatic asset,
they can get their hand on it. So obviously, Nigeria has assets all over the world that are not protected by the diplomatic clause that enable them to have those things protected so that individuals can get access to it. So again, it goes back to show, how lousy the leadership at the foreign ministry is, and then the office of the president. And then you have all these Nigerians who go around as senior advocate of Nigeria. If you're a senior advocate of Nigeria, you should not just be going to local court. You should gather. Anytime anything is going to damage the global brand of Nigeria, you lawyers should gather and go after it on behalf of Nigeria, just to show that you can fight. But nobody does anything. That's why they can, in Nigeria, anybody can just go in and seize their bank account or even their diplomatic offices. So it's an embarrassment. It's a huge one. And Tinubu should have been saying something about it, but obviously he hasn't.
I mean, saying something about he's currently on holiday in France or on a work stay in France. So maybe when he's back, he would address it. But I mean, what level of introspection do you think that the Nigerian government should take from all of this that is playing out? There's many. I think you mentioned an aspect that I think I should also focus on. Someone had also raised certain issues with regards the approach that the Nigerian legal representatives, even had to some of these cases where they didn't show up on time or they delayed in addressing these issues, and that's what led to the eventual, court decisions to have these assets seized. And so, what for you would be the, points of introspection that the current Nigerian government must take from all of this?
First of all, who is incurring the debt? If it's a state, if it's an individual, is it the federal government of Nigeria? So the Nigerian Senate or the Nigerian National Assembly should get together now and pass a certain law making it, if you go to borrow money or a state governor, because I think part of this is like a state governor when I borrowed money and now the guy is not going after the state, he's going after Nigeria. There should be a limitation. There should be clauses when Nigeria or individual Nigerians are incurring debt for themselves, not for the country. But once you cross your own international border, then you get into the diplomacy issues. You should avail yourself of all clauses and protections that enables you to function so that you can protect that brand. Remember, this is Nigeria. This is not Nigerians. And so that law should be in place. No, I mean, for instance, like somebody going after U.S. asset overseas, it will never happen because, they're going to protect the American brand. So what we need to do, or what Nigerians need to do is, this is an example for them to rally, get back into a committee and say, this should never happen. I mean, you hear these Chinese do, they lend you money and they seize your asset. It shouldn't happen. One day they might even want to come and say, we own all of Nigeria. So Nigerians should be very careful what debt they get, what are the conditions, what are the default. And then maybe this is time now to go. Anybody who's going to lend money to Nigeria, it should be made public so that the public can see the terms and conditions.
I think that's a great angle that we're going to explore, being lending or borrowing money, whichever you so please. But let's go on this quick break, and when we come back, we'll delve into that. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're still looking at the conversation regarding the Chinese firm's dispute against Nigeria, and we're joined by Ejike Okpa, Global Affairs Analyst. Thank you once again for being with us. Now, I'd like us to look at the role that Ogun State plays in all of this. We know that all this drama dates back to 2007 when the Ogun State Free Trade Zone situation or agreement was entered into between Ogun State and the Chinese firm. Unfortunately, several years down the line, that has broken down. There's been an arbitration award that was given against Ogun State. Now, at what point, first of all, I think the first question would be, was Ogun State or should the state in Nigeria be entitled to go into contractual agreements of such magnitude with international companies without the approval of the federal government? And now that the arbitral award has been given, who is meant to pay the arbitral award? Is it the state or is it the federation?
I mean, when you go for debt, you have to go to who originated the debt. So if it was Ogun State and it was 17 years ago, 2007, as you said, then they should go back and look at that agreement. Was the agreement debated or by the Ogun State's House of Assembly, who were the signatories to that, debt. And if for whatever reason they did it, then the Chinese people, if see, one thing about debt is, if there's what they call undue duress. If the lender had used an undue influence and undue duress to lend you money, you are entitled to go to court. If that's what they call the usury law. The usury law is such that if somebody's charging you interest rate that's going to make it harder for you to pay back that debt, the law protects you to go back and decline it. So the Nigerian government now should go back and pull those documents and see what was agreed to, what were the terms. And this, for whatever reason, Ogun State, did it, and either because of out of ignorance or poor advisory, they should be paid. And then what the federal government needs to do is whatever money that is due them, they should withhold it to pay, to reward themselves for whatever damage Nigeria has suffered. Because this may now tell the state, because you see all these governors, they run all over the world and they cure debt. The federal government again and the National Assembly should come in now and make it very, very hard. Because now it's an embarrassment. No, who cares about Ogun State? Who knows that? But everybody's looking at Nigeria. This is becoming case law for those who are studying international law to see this is how not to do it. Nigeria has put itself on a bad situation, and they have to redeem the situation. In fact, they may even have to go after the individual Chinese for doing this. Because if you don't fight back, then nobody's going to take you seriously. And then Nigeria should recall the ambassador of those particular countries. If he's the Canadian ambassador, kick him out of Nigeria, and then recall the Nigerian ambassador to Nigeria, and they have questioned. Because if the countries are colluding to undermine Nigeria, Nigeria should say enough is enough. You can't be doing this.
But that would greatly, be determined by Nigeria's international image and diplomatic strength that it has. Can Nigeria, the Nigeria of today, does it have that diplomatic, strength to take those types of steps? I started by saying that our president is currently in France on a work stay that, of course, is not properly explained to the Nigerian people. What is in France? And these are some of the things that the world is watching.
Well, again, that's what I'm saying. When Tinubu left Nigeria, he said he was going to Equatorial Guinea, and then from Equatorial Guinea, he flew to France. Again, you have the National Assembly. The National Assembly has become a lame dog. They just stamp over whatever the president wants to do, and the president gets away. Nigeria is run like a petty cash operation. The president is in charge of anything. If he wants to appoint a minister, he wants to keep one for himself, he does that. So where is the strength? Where is the strength of the country? It's not in your president. It's not in your governor. Anybody can do anything. I'm just saying sometimes you want bad things to happen. And then when the way happens, it makes you go back to your drawing board. I give you an example. In 1998, a Nigerian gentleman was owed money by a Nigerian MPA. He came to Dallas and met me and wanted me to see if I could help him. I went and we looked at certain things, and we found out the diplomatic aspect Nigeria owned and the non-diplomatic aspect. And my resources at the time told this gentleman, if you want to fight this, don't go back to Nigeria, because he was going to be very mean. So what I'm saying is that Nigeria needs to protect itself. And how you protect yourself is diplomatically, so that nobody, individual or no one particular country, can come over there and run circles around you. This Chinese individual has done something that has just put a slap on Nigerians. And if Tinubu does not rise up to this occasion, then he's not worth being the president of Nigeria.
Yeah.
Look, it's a time, so why people have asked me, Edward, what will make your people get angry? Nigerians don't know how to get angry. Nigerians have become totally docile, allowing things to happen to them. Their governor abused them, the president abused them, and everybody said, oh, they're just this suffering and smiling kind of thing. It shouldn't be. Because now once you say you're a Nigerian, everybody looks at you with suspicion. We Nigerians need to fight.
Just a final question, if you can quickly throw this in 30 seconds. Our diplomatic relations with China, are also very important. We continue to seek loans from China every now and then. And so, that might also be something that puts us in a tight spot, yes?
No, it shouldn't. You shouldn't. I came to America when, the financial crisis were happening in this country. I was one of the people that wrote how to liquidate failed bank assets back in 1989. So China is not lending any money to Nigeria. China is gouging Nigeria. China has become a mafia kind of lender. They send you money. Nobody knows the terms and conditions. Those of you that are in the media, and then the Nigerian financial people and the lawyers. That's why I think, all these people that go around with the title of senior advocate of Nigeria, excuse my French, they are senseless advocates of Nigeria. They haven't fought for Nigeria. Instead, they go and spend time in local courts and try to do things that has no collateral value for Nigeria. But again, it's good that this thing has happened. It's now a call on every Nigerian. You don't have to wait for the president to take action. There should be a petition sent to every senator, every House member to do something. Because if you don't do it, one day you may wake up and they tell you they have seized your federal capital, they have seized your airport. China is not doing Nigeria a favor. China is a main country, and if Chinese people, succeed when you don't push back. I have dealt with them. When you speak up to Chinese men, it goes away. So what has happened that they come to Nigeria and they are treated like us? These people are, mean. I'm using the word, and I'm sorry. I don't have to apologize to it. Chinese people are mean. They don't even see Africans as human beings. All right. So now that they're exercising this stuff, it's emboldening them. You have to just cut them short, just to cut them at the feet, let them fall over. The money they have left Nigeria hasn't made Nigeria succeed. All right, Ejike Okpa, thank you very much for joining us. And once again, we appreciate that you have to wake up to be a part of the show. Now you can go back to bed. I appreciate you guys. That's why I wake up for you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And now it's time to find out what major stories are making headlines across Nigeria today. We're joined by public affairs analyst and the people's favorite public affairs newspaper analyst here, Razak Olokoba. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, viewers.
Good morning. Good to have you.
Everyone's excited to see you this morning.
Thank you.
All right, let's get into it this morning. We'll kick off very likely on the Punch newspapers and share with you what stories are making headlines. Remember, you could also call and be a part of the conversation. The Punch this morning says landowners sue federal government over 15 trillion naira Lagos-Calabar highway. This, of course, has created loads of controversy, not just about the cost of the highway, but also reports and accusations about the internal relationships between the ownership of the company that got the contract to do the highway and, of course, Mr. President. And also if there was a proper bidding process, many questions that have been asked. Also on the Point this morning, Dangote Refinery begins petrol production test run. Tinubu cuts shot his France trip, swears in CJN today. I don't know how he's going to do that. He's going to do it remotely, or he's going to come back to Nigeria. NNPC director's expenses jumped by 214%, says the report. Also, LP denies APC alliance and 1.6 billion naira offer. APC campaign built on lies, says the PDP. Still on the Punch this morning, Minister writes Finance Ministry over SANU and NASU withheld salaries. 6 NSAS protesters freed after 4 years detention. Final story this morning, bandits kill 13 Niger farmers, allege leaked information.
Anyway, let's move on from there. That's a sad way to wrap up the Punch. But let's move to the next paper. On the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper, the big story says, Tinubu's government won't tolerate subversion under any guise, according to federal government, says present administration has clear mandate of the people. Bandits seeking to take possession of mining areas, says Alake. Federal government unveils national plan to combat non-communicable diseases in Nigeria. Pengerson blames weak distribution chain for persistent fuel queues. 6 NSAS protesters regain freedom in plea bargain deal with Lagos government. NNPC explains OVH acquisition, says as commercial entity, it is devoid of political interest. Adopt Okpara's leadership model and prosper, Uzodinma urges leaders. Sacked Benue APC ESCO drags Ganduje-led NWC to court over dissolution. Army orders probe into killing of Kaduna villagers by soldiers. 16 trillion naira needed to complete projects inherited by Tinubu government, said Minister. Tinubu to swear in Justice Kudirat Kekereekun at CGN today. BPP blocks shady procurement processes, saves 1.7 trillion naira in 13 years. Presidency lists how it will determine allocation in 2025 budget. Owando completes $783 million Nigerian Ajib Oil Company acquisition deal. This one that they are saying acquisition deal. We hope that in the next few months we'll not come and start hearing merger and many behind the scenes stories. Do we have time for another paper?
No, I think we can just bring in Mr.
Right, let's get into the conversation. I'd like you to react. I don't know if you've been following the NNPC and the OVH controversy, and they're saying here that NNPC is explaining that they have merged, according to them. So Alhaji Atiku Abubakar had very strong claims about some shadiness between the NNPC and OVH deal, even alleging the implication of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu here, alleged that Wale Tinubu owns 49% of the shares in Owando, which is one of, with his parent company being OVH, and stating that by virtue of this deal, he's in some measure, ensuring that he's increasing Wale Tinubu's ownership in NNPC Retail Limited. NNPC has come out to debunk this, but we're seeing that a number of people have now started to call out the NNPC for how its dealings and how it's been run in such an opaque manner. So I wanted to find out what your thoughts are. Do you believe Alhaji Atiku Abubakar? Do you believe the NNPC who has come out to debunk all of this and referring to it as a merger as opposed to an acquisition?
Let's state what should be.
Okay.
It's not only NNPC that should be doing this. We run a capitalist economy, and if you look at the telecom sector now, it is completely private sector driven. I don't know why government continue to run secret service. If you are going to march, why are you scared of telling Nigerians that it's a merger? Did you get my point now? It's because it's done in secrecy. Look at the police now. Police has done very wonderfully well by clarifying the issue of what I've done to do in LSA. Now, and the noise came down. So on this issue too, make every transaction you are having with any institution, make it public, so that you won't give opportunity to people who want to run conjectures. For me, since we run the capitalist economy, all the critical sectors in the country is going to be privatized, except if you don't know what is called capitalism, or except if we don't know what is called neoliberal economy. So, but it should not be only done by Dangotes. It's not only be done by the Tinubus. It's not going to be done by Otedolas. It should be a people's-driven merger, so that people who want to participate in the oil and gas sector will not be fenced out. If you look at Dangote's refinery now, it's a monopoly. Capitalists don't run monopoly. Capitalists exploit. You should have so many refineries. You may be the captain of all of them, and you may be collecting crude oil even from by progress. So, and the same picture we may be seeing with Dangote might be the one that is managing with Tinubu now. And I will warn him that that's not how economy in the capitalist economy is run. You should be careful, because they will come for him. You should allow other people to come into it. You should allow people to take part, participating in it.
The former vice president made a lot of allegations that might, give ideas as to why there's some secrecy. But Lenin, good morning. Go ahead.
Good morning, New Central. Good morning, everybody. Please.
If you can please speak up, we'll appreciate that.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right. I want to talk about this allegation Atiku made. No NNPC, they've come out to deny the allegation. There's something about Nigeria. Anything that they deny, there's always truth inside. Remember, the federal government denied that they bought private jet for the president. What is true now, right? So these people know themselves. Atiku know these people know Atiku. So they know themselves. It's only us that they are fooling. These people know themselves. They eat together. So if Atiku is saying something, there's an epitome of truth inside, right? So they should just come out and say the truth. They just know. NNPC denied that they were not paying subsidy last year, up to last week. What did they say? What did they say last week? They used another English to confuse us that we go to school. Right. So they should come out and say the truth. We know this thing. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for calling. I think he does make some valid points in the sense that usually he says whenever any organization comes out to publicly deny anything, that chances that it's
and you can see the point I'm making. If Atiku wants to say that there's a merger, it's not illegitimate. You might follow the procedure, that the procedure is wrong, and that is what I always want opposition to be doing, not to run politics into everything. You must be able to be objective about what you are saying, that no, And then the oil and gas sector is the major reason why we have problem in this country, because it's run by monopoly. We have only 4 big refineries in the country. Dangote is coming up. When in actual fact, all those major refineries should be working. There's no state in Nigeria that should not have its own refinery. If you want to come out of the mess we find ourselves today, this first guy will keep recurring. Will keep recurring. If we continue to run the big refinery we have in mind, we have crude oil in this country. So why must it be only 5, 6, 7? We turn about 2 million vehicles on the road. We need fuel every day to run it. So, and we think that it is by Dangote refinery, it is by Kaduna refinery, it is by Warri refinery that we will have access to the petrol that we need to survive on daily basis. No, it's not.
Yeah, I think the key aspect of the Atiku Abubakar allegations,
it's
not just it's not just about
wait, or because he's a brother to the president. He's been known against Atiku before the man become the president. It's the procedure. If the procedure is wrong.
Times reports, it probably would shed some light on why it's a problem. It's not. He, of course, is a businessman.
He's been doing his business before the man became the president.
The point is, there are certain aspects of the whole deal that you can point to as major red flags. And
just like that of Dangote too. It's not now.
No. Him simply being in the oil and gas sector before President Tinubu became president is not a good enough excuse for why things must have played out. Pretty much the same thing with the Abuja Calabar, the Lagos Calabar Highway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That the fact that high tech had been in construction many years ago, it's not a good enough reason why
especially
we should ignore those red flags
exactly
that might exist with the whole transaction. And you are very much aware of the red flags that existed with that transaction. And of course, the things that have been highlighted in the whole process all the while, including, of course, with the David Umahi excuses that he gives every now and then for the way things played out. So
it's not even just with them. We saw that as well with Olubunmi Tunjiojo and the allegations of him, when he was being criticized of his a company that was, that he had some association with or some work done with, and his wife being a part of the company. So one, there's conflict of interest. Two, it's basically, let's take this call. I'll come back and talk about it. We have Grace calling from Nasarawa. Good morning, Grace. Please go ahead.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Please go ahead.
Yes, what I was initially saying, my name is Graceman from
Graceman. All right, thank you very much.
Graceman, yeah. What I was saying is this. I said a lot of people are afraid of speaking the truth. Some are afraid because they will be withdrawn if they speak the truth against the government of the day. Some are lobbyists. They want to lobby to get position, so they just want to fight the government so that the government will consider them for an appointment. But the truth in our society today is subsidy is being paid and paid into few pockets. You see, there's nothing like shortfall anywhere. Subsidy is subsidy. And since they say subsidy is gone, until now, there is no effect of anything. So we need to pay the fact. If this money can be reversed back to the real subsidy to subsidize the fuel for us, the better. Or we should go back to the drawing board and allow crude oil to be sold to Dangote. This one they are postponing every day. They say July, now to August to September, now they say October 1st. We don't understand. The way we are being governed in this country, but the leaders are becoming rulers. Okay, our own refineries, our own indigenous refineries now, they push it from July. From last year to July to August, now they are saying September, which is not even feasible. So what are we really talking about in this country? You see, the way we are being governed, I pray for for violent protest not to erupt from somewhere unnoticed, because people are really facing difficulties
from this. Thank you so much, Graceman, for calling. He says he prays for another violent protest not to erupt. They're already starting to speak about, protests potentially happening. So yes, I think what I was trying to say to you before I took Graceman's call was the fact that what is being argued against is not just the shady way by which this deal may have occurred. Some months back, the House of Representatives had set up an ad hoc committee to investigate this, and they had asked the NNPC to pause the acquisition of OVH. You know, they had asked for Mele Kyari. The first time I remember, you know, he didn't go. It was the group vice president that had gone.
Yeah.
I said he can't speak on behalf of NNPC. But beyond that, it's also the shares, the allegation of what Wale Tinubu's shares might be in this. Even though NNPC, in their press release, have come out to say that Wale Tinubu doesn't own shares there, and the shares have been divested between two parties, and each person holding 50% each, and that Wale Tinubu doesn't have shares there. But like you said earlier, if their dealings were very clear and done in the open, we would not, you know, it wouldn't have been subject to all this misinterpretation. I want us to take the conversation to another angle. Let's look at fuel subsidy. If I recall, you were very much in support of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to remove fuel subsidy.
Yeah.
You've always spoken clearly about how you've been in support of fuel subsidy. Now, the reports we're saying is that fuel subsidy is actually not gone. It just probably has a different nomenclature. It has a different name or designation, I would say. It's not being referred to as shortfall. Because if their explanation is that NNPC imports fuel at a certain landing cost, which is typically very high, and that the federal government instructs them sometimes to sell half the cost of what they imported fuel with, or imported petrol with. So therefore, there is some loss. And that loss there is being paid by the federal government. So the federal government is not paying subsidy to oil marketers, but they are paying to NNPC. Now, NNPC is saying that they're not going to make remittances to the federation account, even though we're not even quite sure how much is coming into the federation account. So is it safe for you to now admit that maybe subsidy isn't actually gone with this new revelation?
No, the previous subsidy had an issue. There's no way that you don't subsidize some critical sectors in our life, particularly agriculture. So the manner, you know, I protested against. I sent the clip to your colleague to send to you when you say I'm not one of the leader of the Ojota.
Being president doesn't mean you're a leader. That was my point.
We can't claim leadership if we are not a leader. In fact, protest is not a shareholding thing
where you make money.
It's a thing that can hand you slap from police and detention. So it's not a glorious thing that you should be proud of. It's a sacrifice. Yeah. So now, I was opposed to it because we said that no, you can't remove subsidy. All countries in the world, the citizens depend on subsidy. But between that time and up until Buhari came in, there were what Okonya Iweala was exposing to us, the Lamido Sanusi was also exposing to us, that this money was supposed to be doing what you have just explained. That if you are refining oil outside Nigeria, the landing cost, Nigeria cannot buy it too. So what measure do we put in place to make sure that we pay part of the money? Just like a tuber of yam is 1,000 naira as a landing cost.
Being done. So
if that is what is done with that money, that's what we are supporting. That was what we were fighting against during Jonathan's time.
So what kind of subsidy
you're fighting against what exactly
do you think was being paid before?
Jonathan's time wanted to remove subsidy. That as at that time, it was actually money that prevented Nigeria from buying the fuel at higher price. But at the time, it was not addressing that again. It was ending in a private pocket. They will claim that it was level.
But the whole idea of it ending in private pocket has continued. It never stopped.
No, but what the measure they were putting in place is that the money doesn't go to the private sectors again. It's going to NNPC, who is going to be the sole importer of the fuel.
So you can say you categorically trust that this money has not been misappropriated and it still is not.
It's a continuous process. Me and you have to be the watchdog. It's a continuous process. Don't make it look as if it is business of the people in government only. No, it's the business of all of us. So if you have any information that leads to the fact that that money may likely go into rent because of the procedure that is being established, you have to expose it. That's why we are there.
What they
That's why we are
say
citizens.
is that subsidy hasn't stopped being paid, regardless of whether it's to marketers or it's to NNPC or whatever the case is. Subsidy is still being paid. And all the allegations of how much they had said that they have saved so far might not really be true. But let's take this call. We have a call coming in. Good morning. Thank you very much for calling. Please turn down the volume of your TV set. Thank you. All right, seems your audio is poor. Please, we'd like for you to call back. So, at the end of the day, what they're saying is that subsidy hasn't been...
This back and forth, don't dissipate energy in the process that is on ground for giving us fuel in Nigeria. It can't work. We have said it over time again. That until we give access to many people to refine oil in Nigeria, you can't continue to bring in oil. And you're not looking in that direction. That should be our major battle with Tinubu's government now. That we don't want more refinery. We don't want Dangote only. In fact, we want state to start refining oil in Nigeria.
Why are we making this some sort of a Dangote fight or a Dangote attack? Because
no, I'm not attacking Dangote. Which we attack Dangote?
You know what I'm saying?
What I'm saying is that
what I'm saying is what I'm still going back to is the fact that you have always been in support of fuel subsidy being removed, and that was one thing that changed the trajectory.
What led to subsidy in the first instance is because you are bringing oil from outside Nigeria,
and we are still bringing oil from outside Nigeria.
And that's that should be our battle with the government now.
Let me land, please.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, nothing has really changed from when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu announced subsidy is gone. That's what the current indications are telling us, because he had told us about
read the report.
Monies that had been saved.
Read the report very well. Don't read the report to number 5 page. Is that if it's about 10 pages?
Which report are you talking about?
The report of why the subsidy was removed. It was said that subsidy is going to come back. And also said that it should come back, but it should be designed in such a way that subsidies will be for Nigerians. It's going to subsidize what Nigerians are actually buying. Not that you are going to work out.
How has that worked? How has that played out?
Maybe this is the new arrangement in place now. And it's not going to be a long time before it's going to circumvent. It will be circumvent until you start producing our oil.
What do you mean by this is new arrangement in place? I'm asking how has that
not
played
to
out?
Pay marketers. Okay. The way it should be done then. It's now through the NNPC. But it's not going to last long before we are going to run into crisis again. The only solution is that we have to have an homegrown refinery. I don't have anything against. I mentioned Dangote, I mentioned Kaduna refinery, I mentioned Warri refinery, I mentioned refinery that they are not enough, they are not sufficient. We need more refineries, we need the qualification to become a refinery owner in Nigeria. The requirement should be lesser.
Let's take a call from Solomon. Good morning, Solomon. Please go ahead. Okay, Solomon, please do well to call back.
In fact, there should be resource control. The owners of oil has been barricaded from having access to their oil. Who are the people on Niger Delta? And that is going to be the final solution. And that is why when I see people from Niger Delta supporting the argument for subsidy, I used to accuse them that you are not addressing the issue that is affecting your region. The major issue is that there should be resource control. There is nowhere in the world where government manages this kind of sensitive resources and is well managed. It's been done by Obasanjo, it's been done by Jonathan, it's been done by Buhari. People must control their resources. That's the issue. So that when there's oil at the back of my village here in Kapkwara 2 one day, when I start advocating for oil, they won't say that because there's oil in your backyard.
I don't think we're going to, agree to disagree on this whole subsidy.
You all know my position.
I mean, it's not just your position. It's mostly because your position doesn't even sound clear. It sounds like we're moving in many directions. But
no, you have made up your mind not to understand my position.
No, it's not.
Because it's clear.
It's really.
If you complete the report very well, you will say that they said this money is going to private pockets. And it's going to be redesigned. And the
right
window
now,
period,
you believe it's no longer going to private pockets?
No, with this redesign, we must all be the watchdog. You can't give me the responsibility as a Nigerian. It's a shared responsibility between you, me, and every Nigerian to also watch.
To be the watchdog.
To be the watchdog. I'm presenting to you raise alarm too. The way we raise alarm during Jonathan's time, and some people are raising alarm now again.
All right. I want you to also speak on some other things. On the Vanguard newspapers this morning, I think we can put the Vanguard on the screen. The top right corner there says, Ajero's police summons. Obi cautions federal government as New Peng puts oil workers on red alert. We've also seen in the news much earlier that there are other trade unions, labor unions rather, that have threatened to go on strike if anything happens to Joe Ajero. So I want you to your quick response to all the issues playing out concerning the NLC, President.
There's a book written by Raphael Siblani on the death of democracy. It's not only army that kills democracy. Attitude of trying to subvert governance too is also one of the things that murders democracy. And when you weaponize a union, it's not good for our government, it's not good for our country. That's what exactly all the labor unions in the country are doing. If you listen to what the police PRO said on TV, he was explicit about the reason why they went to NLC office. And that should be a concern to all of us. There's a low-scale war going in the southeast now. There's a low-scale war going on in the northeast, the northwest, in the whole of except the southwest that has a semblance of a peace. It should be our concern how to put that behind us. And if there's someone that comes from another country to our own country, and we don't do the needful, it means we are aiding and abetting terrorists in another country. When the time comes for them to support us to fight terror, they will not. And so it's normal for the landlord to be invited. Maybe there are other issues, I don't know. I don't know why it's turned to a blackmail against the government. The police had some attitude before of not explaining why they went there, but they did, which is very marvelous to me. So the man should go there and explain himself. If there's no ulterior motive, he needs to go there. And the labor union, this is not the sweat of Nigerians were used to build that reputation that they are trying to scandalize. Because it's going to a scandal. Why must you? So if any institution's head is being advised by the police now, that institution should shut down or should start fighting the government.
You don't think it's
not
a
proper
way to stifle the labor unions or the civil society?
By Ajero alone, by inviting Ajero alone. See, when Jonathan Obasanjo was there, with his strong character, he didn't succeed to do anything for Oshiomhole. And Oshiomhole was also very careful in not doing certain things. We have said from day one that...
Do you think Georgia has made some mistakes?
Yes, the way they carried on with the labor issue, making very ridiculous demand, which tend to interpret to many Nigerians and people like us that, no, you are weaponizing this your union. It's not the welfare of the workers that you're after again. So now, when it happens now, it gives credence to what some of us are saying. I mean, so we know that you have some skeleton in your cupboard, but we don't want to go to conclusions. Let him go and see the police. Why is he running away from the police? He needs to come with clean hands. He needs to be one of the people that should be advocating for respect for institutions in Nigeria like the police. So it's not a good thing. It's not laying a good example, and we are not impressed. I am not impressed. I'm a bit disappointed in him. Why he's running away? You are not a gun carrying labor union. You didn't break any law. So go and see them. Why are you running away from the police?
All right. Let's quickly touch on this story before we wrap up. On the front page of the Punch, at the top of the paper, it says, Tinubu cut short France trip, swears in CGN today. One of the things that was criticized, the president was criticized about, was the fact that the nation was, quote-unquote, burning in the sense of there was fuel scarcity, terrible fuel scarcity, and yet the president was on a work trip, details which we had, were not privy to. But now he has come back to swear in the CGN, Ekekere Ekun, to swear in the CGN today. So, of course, he has seen that it is important. His role as the person to swear in the CGN is important. But Nigerians before now had said, he has, in a way, shows that he's disconnected from the reality of Nigeria. Is this a position that you can see some sense in?
You know my position on some of these things now. I will always be objective, no matter what the blackmail people have against me. Foreign policy is very important. There are so many instruments of foreign policies, the diplomatic, the military, the economy. It is a mission to sell your country to the rest of the world. Since it's been established that no country can survive in isolation, we need gas, we need so many things to survive as a country. So the president should sit down and operate his foreign policy. No, he won't do that. You need to go around the world to at least recreate the impression people have about Nigeria.
And nobody's disagreeing with that, the fact that there's foreign policy. I think what people are upset about is the timing of him implementing this foreign policy. We don't even know what it is because it was
at that time, your foreign policy must.
And this happened in the middle of one fuel scarcity, the controversy amid the purchasing of jets. And this purchasing of jets was highly criticized because Nigerians said that the president is disconnected from the reality of the people. So if it was even possible that you could cut short your trip to come and swear in the CGN, who is succeeding Justice Ariwola, because it is important. So is it maybe not important for you?
Is the president back in Nigeria?
According to the reports, it says it's happening this morning at 11 a.m. at the Aso Villa. It would seem that the president is back. According to the reports on the Punch, he cut short his France trip. And I've checked online.
People are saying that are mischievous about it, and they are plotting us against our government. I won't be part of people that they are going to plot against this government. There's no way the president is that he cannot operate. He won't be the one selling fuel for us at filling stations. And there's a mechanism. And there's the mechanism in place to cushion what is going on.
He's the Minister of Petroleum. That's
are you aware that the queues are no longer as long as it used to be?
But they are still queues, of that? Because on our
and it was not because he came. The mechanism is being in place before he left, and the queue is gradually disappearing. For me, I just know one attitude with us in this country, which is that...
Why should anybody celebrate that the queues are gradually disappearing? We had, petrol...
We should celebrate it because we operate a system where we will consistently have this issue. I've always said that. I said it this morning.
Yeah, I mean...
So if you're able to make it work, it should be a miracle to me. Because I don't expect it to work because 5 refineries for 250 million Nigerians with generators to run and so many things to run.
Are you comfortable with the fact or with the possibility that in another 2 months we might have another petrol scarcity?
Yes, and that's not because of inefficiency of this government. Okay. It's the inefficiency of the system we run. Which you have been pointing out all this one, pointing out.
Delve into what the system we run means, but are you?
I've said it. It's simple. It's simple. You can't have 5 refineries for 250 million Nigerians.
And the position of the president.
It's me and you. We are running away from the matter, which is to confront the government that you can't have 5 refineries for us.
Just to quickly
all those refineries that have been destroyed. Why are you destroying them? Legalize them.
Are you?
You should join us in this advocacy. Yeah.
Are you comfortable with the president being the Minister of Petroleum?
That's been the trend from time.
Yes. But the fact that it's been the trend from time doesn't mean it has to continue, right? He could have decided when he was listening to his cabinet to call someone else. Like you've mentioned, he has a lot of foreign diplomacy to do, a lot of foreign trips to make. If he's busy running the country, do you think that he can be able to pay adequate attention to the petroleum sector?
For me, there should be devolution of power. And it should not be, we can't isolate the president, the oil and gas sector only. There should be devolution of power on all sectors.
No, we're talking about...
And all other sectors are important. And oil. I agree with you.
Yes.
I agree with you.
Oil sector because...
Not only oil sector.
No. I'm focusing on the oil sector.
No, as a professional, I won't isolate all oil sector. As much as I agree with you that there should be devolution of power on oil sector, there should be devolution of power on policing, on so many aspects of
life. And we agree with you on that.
You can't do it in isolation.
Is should the president continue as the Minister of Petroleum?
It will be misleading to isolate oil and gas sector only because an umbilical cord, and that's the error we are making.
The president is not Minister of...
It's an umbilical cord.
Exactly, the president is not Minister of any other
why are we moving in a different direction?
No. The presidency has life and death power over the affairs of Nigeria, and that is the point. You read security report from everywhere, including all the states, every day.
It's not a difficult question. Should Mr. President continue to be the Minister of Petroleum? That's a simple question.
It shouldn't be, but not only on oil and gas sector. There are other sectors too that, but you can't address the oil and gas sector.
I've gotten the answer I want. The answer is that
he shouldn't be.
He shouldn't be the Minister of Petroleum.
Just like any other president too, and that, it should not be all like. Don't make that mistake, which is the point the president trying to correct that.
I have said focus on oil and gas sector. We can talk about the other sector.
What did he go to do in front?
Foreign mission. He went for foreign mission. And
see, is that what he said?
Let me tell you something about foreign mission.
Mr.
Before it germinates,
gentlemen, we have to go because
why will you be distrusting your president?
No. I'm asking what he said. What did the president say?
What did you hear that the president said? He said he went for...
Gentlemen.
So when the president went for foreign mission, when your president went for foreign mission, before it germinates, you should start exposing him. Right, you don't run foreign mission like that.
We'll have to talk about this after the show.
You don't run foreign mission like that.
We'll have another conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll go to break now. When we come back, we have our next story. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. As we wrap up the conversation today, let's share with you what our top stories for the week is. There are several stories that have made big stories on Breakfast Central that we've discussed in the course of the week. But I think I'll stick to NNPCL being my top story of the week. Why? Because of the controversy between NNPCL and OVH. Alhaji Atiku Abubakar had come out with very strong allegations of the relationship or the acquisition of NNPC by OVH, and in return, OVH, and NNPC. It's been a lot of drama going on, and even with the alleged involvement of Wale Tinubu, who was stated to have held 49% of the shares, a statement that has now been denied by the NNPC and a statement. Why is this my top story? It's my top story because I find that the the dealings of the NNPC have been shrouded in some measure of secrecy for the longest time. It's been referred to as opaque, and it's why people have been asking for some clarity, for some light to be shed on the work that the NNPC does. One of the newspapers had reported that when they used the Freedom of Information Act to request for information regarding how much OVH was purchased, but that they were denied that information, stating that it was a privately owned business, even though it's not private, it's a government-owned business. I mean, that's
the NNPC,
NNPC, of course. So that's one of the angles. It just feels like NNPC is a very key player in our nation, in determining our nation's energy sector right now. For the longest time, they had talked about NNPC not being the sole importer of petrol, but now we've come to see that they are the sole importer, and as a matter of fact, a huge determinant of Nigeria's energy security. So if one organization wields that much power and influence, the very least that the nation can do is to ensure that its activities are done with transparency. There are a number of questions that need to be answered, and I'm hoping that the NNPC, with evidence, answers these questions and brings some calm to the heart of Nigerians. Also, again, I think it's time that we revisit the conversation about the president being the Minister of Petroleum. It's obviously not working. The initial intent why this has happened is because they wanted to curb corruption, seeing that the Ministry of Petroleum was one avenue where they could siphon and, suck a lot of money. But it's not working. Really, that was the initial, I mean, that's what they said. Yeah. And we can't give any other reason to why they did that. But so far, it hasn't worked because NNPC has been, and the oil sector has been a serious pain in Nigeria's journey so far. So if you've done the same thing over and over again, I'm going to say the quote that says, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. The president has a lot on his hands, a lot to deal with. Right now, adding that to Minister of Petroleum, it's too much. So maybe now we should revisit that conversation so that we know who to hold accountable. Also, mostly because, in times when, I mean, I've always argued that we don't have any standards with which we rate the performance of ministers, 7 ministers in Nigeria. We've never had any standards. So it's difficult to tell when a minister is failing or not because, the person who appointed him hasn't placed any standards on him. If you remember the Bawa administration and the people that were appointed as ministers, in every sector, they pretty much all said the same thing. And at the end, when Buhari was leaving, they were all saying, oh, we didn't even know what we put there. And some of us, were obviously square pegs and round holes and all of that. So there's certain ministers I've seen on Twitter lately that if that person walked into any room in Nigeria today and said he's the minister of this, many people would get him arrested. Or else they'd get him arrested because he's an imposter, because they don't recognize him or her. There's many of them that, currently exist like that have almost no relevance in the lives of the average Nigerian because there's no, there's nothing to remember. There's no KPIs. I mean, the only thing that we heard about them was at the point when they were being sworn, when they were doing their screening, and that's it. Which then goes again to our mode of screening and appointment of ministers. We should then start to say we are appointing people, announcing them based on their portfolio so that they can come, when they're coming to the house and they're being screened by the lawmakers, they can say, for example, I'm being nominated to be a minister for women affairs, and this is what I see as the gap in the ministry currently, and this is what I plan to bring. So that when we are analyzing their KPI, we can look at what they have promised during their screening and say, well, you said you would do this, but you haven't done this. That would be great, but I believe that we should have KPIs that these ministers work with. And if you have spent 2 years and you've not met up with any of the, KPIs or any of the requirements, of your ministry, then you should be able to have a perfect excuse. Either your ministry has not been funded properly or you just don't have the instruments to work with. And in that case, if you haven't done well, you are fired. How many ministers have been fired so far? The only reason why we haven't had a better idea in a while is because of the corruption saga that, surrounded her ministry. But yeah, but the point is, none of these firings or questions are raised because of non-performance. The only reasons is once in a while, there's just some reason to change a minister, but it's not because the minister has not been performing. But I do cases, because of corruption allegations. And also, I think it's important to mention that the conversations concerning OVH and NNPC aren't just happening, solely because of petrol scarcity. No. They're happening because of the fears or the allegations, of conflict of interest with Mr. President's relatives and Mr. President's, business partners, the Chaguri company. Of course, that's with regards to construction company now. But of course, with Wale Tinubu and Oando, those interests are what are subtly being highlighted with those conversations, not simply because, well, there's petrol scarcity and NNPC, seems to be failing. Those are the things that, should not be ignored. We don't have a National Assembly that really keep, prize into these issues well enough. I want to quickly share on, once again, reiterate, that I believe that yesterday's events with South Africa, I have fears that it will, snowball into something much worse in the future, which I'm concerned about, that, these subtle rivalries that we pick up here and there might happen just on social media, but it starts to create a certain, tension and hatred.
in a subtle way between both countries, and I think that is
anymore.
unnecessary. I mean, it's very unnecessary, and it must be managed, it must be curtailed, it must be put to a stop. Everyone who took part in the show of shame yesterday should be ashamed of themselves, including those who were priding themselves as Nigerian social media warriors and how Nigerians, you never defeat them in situations like this.
When they go low,
they should always remember, the go lower thing is embarrassing and shameful. And I wish that we put that same energy into demanding accountability from our government. When it's time for Nigerians to unite against Ghana or against Cote d'Ivoire, South Africa or Egypt or anybody, you'll see all of them unite. But when it's time for them to unite against their personal issues and the burdens that they have, they remember that they're Igbo and they remember that they are Yoruba, they remember that they're Bini, and it's a very, very embarrassing thing. So please, yesterday's show of shame should never repeat itself. We need to go.
We're out of the studio. We'll be back again on Monday. Remember that Breakfast Extra continues tomorrow and on Sunday. And hopefully when we return on Monday, we will still not be having conversations about fuel scarcity. I'm Olive Emodi. I know it's Friday, so I say do not drink and drive and make sure to turn up with sense. See you on Monday.
And I am Osaogi Bawa. See you tomorrow. I'll see you on Monday.